Sir from 17 once again, introducing you to my Darksiders 2 Apocalyptic difficulty video walkthrough. This is one of the final sections to the Foundry. We're still moving forward, pulling switches, stepping on plates, beating things up with mashing X, the usual, and I am still on my Prometheus rant, so sit back, relax, grit your teeth and enjoy. Because we're coming towards the end of it, and you'll probably not see another one like this until I watch The Dark Knight Rises, because if I don't enjoy that, you will definitely hear from me. If I do enjoy that, you'll hear from me as well. So, at this point I want to mention some things I really liked about the film, and this is a big spoiler if you've not seen it. So there's a big twist that happens, and they realise that one of these engineers is in a stasis of his own. And they decide to wake him up, because there's a certain character in the film that wants to meet one of them because he wants to cheat death. That's his ultimate goal, that's the ulterior motive, and that's what a lot of these people are working towards. You know, all the underhanded tactics have all been towards this one goal. So they wake up this guy, and Fassbender, who's the droid who's been studying these ancient texts, begins to try and speak to this creature, this god, effectively. And the creature is humanoid in its looks. It's extremely tall. It's extremely muscled. It's like, imagine, you know, a UFC fighter who's about 11 feet tall and super strong and shit. Only he's wearing an outfit which would be more befitting of Hellraiser, Pinhead guy, or you know, somebody from a sadomasochistic dungeon. And Fassbender starts talking to this guy, and you watch the expression on its face as it notices that it's speaking, you know, some kind of dialect that's very similar to its own, and he reaches out to Michael Fassbender and kind of cups his cheek like a father might do to a son, or a man will do to a woman, you know, a pair of lovers, and he lovingly kind of touches his cheek and looks at him to show this appreciation, this almost, you know, this almost complete moment of wonder, and he immediately follows it up by ripping his head off. And it's brilliant, and it's brilliant on so many levels. The first level is brilliant from a personal perspective of mine, which is, if we were created by some kind of superior being, some kind of great, you know, great engineer, great creator, why the fuck do we always assume that these people are going to be benevolent? The most egotistical thing we can do as a species and as an individual is to create something purely for the sake of creating it. I mean, sure, there can be motives behind it, but at the end of the day, anybody who creates anything is a product of ego. And benevolence is something that doesn't gel well with ego, because benevolence is selflessness. Benevolence is you know, an altruistic good that not a lot of people have. And I fucking hate this ideal that, you know, when we die we go to this beautiful place where the person who made us is going to be waiting in open arms to come and see us again, when in reality, if God was so kind and so nice and loved us all so fucking much, why doesn't he knock on my door every day and bring me a sandwich? Ridiculous. So, for me, the best thing you can do in fiction is the complete opposite. Because, like, there's a line from a Trivium song of all places, and I know there's probably people going, ugh, dude, you like death metal, why would you say that word? And, you know, I can appreciate all kinds of music, and Trivium used to be amazing in my eyes, but there's one sentence from Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr which always resonated with me, because it's completely my personality in a T, because it's amazingly just slick and dark and awesome. And it is literally, I think it goes, you ask me, oh God, why? 'Cause I'm God's fucking why. And I love that. I love that line. It's probably butchered. It's probably something very similar. I've probably not got it 100% right. But at the end of the day, I find it brilliant. I find it fitting. It's really good. It's really good. It's literally like when you're young and you ask your mum for something and she turns around and she says no. It's great. It's perfect, and this is what this superior being does. He then goes on to like fucking dropkick everybody in the room, which is kind of cool, and he goes Jean-Claude Van Damme it up. And at that point it gets kind of silly, but I still appreciate the fact that they're all expecting this creator to be this humble, awesome artisan of species, and he turns out to just be a massive dickhead. And it's a beautiful irony, which the film does really well. And this is kind of the beginning of the end in the movie, because it all starts to kick off, and stuff starts to happen. It gets all real interesting, and this is where everybody shows the hand, and the twists occur, and there's a whole host of different things going off. And there's the awesome bit from every trailer that you've seen for Prometheus, because I'm telling you now, if you've seen a teaser or a trailer, doesn't matter how long it was, what you watched, you've pretty much seen this section. And do you know why? It's because trailers nowadays are just pure lies. They really are. You go back and get a VHS tape, and I know for some people they're probably saying, well, there's not enough archaeologists to find them, but fuck you, I'm not that old. You go back and get a tape, bang it in a good old VHS player, you'll see maybe 4 or 5 adverts before the film comes on, and every single advert, oh, look at this for amazing game making, there's a perfectly mantleable surface, can I mantle up it, can I balls? But back on topic. VHS tape, banging in, trailers at the start, before the feature-length film. Every single one of them will be amazing in either its epicness, its cheesiness, or it's just, oh my god, I love how trailers used to be-ness. And the reason, they're all the same. They're all either a bunch of dude with mullets or ponytails. You can always spot the bad guys because there's the guy in the suit with the ponytail pulling the Israeli Uzi in a place where you couldn't find an Uzi. That's how you do it. And the good guy is generally somebody who can't act, with a very stoic face, who throws high kicks for days. And they're always narrated by the same guy. He's an extremely successful black voiceover dude who worked for Toonami, if you've got Sky and you watched the Cartoon Network series a couple of years back. And it's always the same guy. And he's got a super deep voice, he's completely amazing, and he voiced all of the trailers, and it always goes along the lines of being like, somewhere in the jungle, there's a man versus an army. And that's literally it. And every cliche you can think of is in there. There's saxophones in the soundtrack, there's synthesizers, and it's genius. The trailer lasts maybe 1 to 2 minutes, it doesn't outstay its welcome, it doesn't tell you any of the story, and most importantly, it doesn't show you the best parts of the fucking film. Where did we go wrong in our craft? That trailers nowadays, if it's not a 10-second teaser that shows you every action set piece that's worth watching, it's a 7-minute trailer that you pretty much you come out of the trailer thinking, why would I want to watch the film? I now know more about this film than I do the characters in Prometheus. Because they show too much. They show far too much. Or they do it even worse. They make a trailer specifically that is enticing, specifically that catches your attention, and it brings you in with the completely wrong mentality towards that film. And a good example for me was International with Clive Owen, which is essentially about the financial pluses to the debt that is generated by war and by conflict and by selling weapons to countries that can't afford the profit but need the weapons to kill. And it's a really, really political subject, and it's a really interesting kind of espionage type movie. But the trailer made it look like an action movie because there's a shootout in I think it's a German art gallery, and it lasts for maybe 10 minutes. It's a really good shootout, but it's pretty much the only real action sequence of the film. And what does the trailer do? It interconnects this action sequence to make it look like Clive Owen's in a John Woo movie, and he's not. It's a completely different film, and if you go into it thinking you're going to get an action movie, you're going to be severely disappointed. And that is the problem with trailers these days. And bringing it back full circle to the point I'm trying to make is every teaser, every trailer for Prometheus shows this section where they're running on the planet and shit's raining down on top of them and stuff. And this all comes from a 5-minute sequence in the last 10 minutes of the film. And the sequence itself is pretty pathetic. The only reason it exists, in my opinion, is to kill Charlize Theron, because her character's so fucking pointless, they couldn't think of a better way to write her out of the film, so they thought, we'll just drop a spaceship on her. And that's the only reason it exists. And to have a nice flashy bit of, action sequence that probably didn't take too long to do. But from this point onwards, there's a couple other sections that happen, and then there's also the big fan service moment, the big fanfare to every single person who has ever, watched an Alien movie, ever played an Alien game, ever read a comic, ever wrote his own fan fiction, ever wore the t-shirt, ever lived in his mum's basement, all the great cliches. they pretty much show you the origin of the alien. Or the origin of the species that we know as a xenomorph. And it comes from just the most ridiculous cop-out of a final section of a film. And I know this sounds super negative, folks, but just bear in mind, I'm trying to put a comedy lilt on this to take away the dissatisfaction I got from the film. And if you enjoyed it, that is fine. I'm happy for you. I didn't. And I'm not going to lie, because I can't do it. But the end of this movie, the leading lady is kind of on her own and in a really shit situation. And there's this awesome moment where she walks into this life pod, which is the place where Charlize Theron kind of lived. And I'm not even going to outline the stupidity of dropping the escape pod and then ejecting, the people that are supposed to get in it, who then die before they get to the emergency pod because you couldn't wait 30 fucking seconds for them to get there before you ejected it. Like, the irony of that is hilarious. Because not only do we have this captain who's played by Luther, who's this English actor who's putting on a fucking dreadful American accent, who's a fantastic actor, but he's got about 7 lines in the entire film. There's this really wanton, sex, like, relationship thing thrown out with the least interesting character in the movie. And then at the end, we're supposed to feel sorry for this dude who's had absolutely no development when he decides to, suicide for the greater good. It's like, dude, I think I would have cried if you didn't fly the plane into that other plane. Because you did so little in this movie, I kind of wish you weren't in it. Which is incredibly harsh, because he's a great actor and I think he was underused. But then again, I think the entire cast of the film was underused. The only thing that wasn't underused was probably Fassbender and black sludgy tar stuff. But back to what I was saying, because once again I digress, because I digress a lot. They kind of reverse engineer the xenomorph, and the scenario that he comes from is this landing craft, or this escape module, is a full living quarters. It's this really nice looking, it's got artificial glass walls that show television screens that show nature and shit. And it's well spaced, it's a living room, it's got lots of whites, it's got, very reminiscent of the Spartan look of spaceships that we generally do these days in films. And when it drops down to Earth, or down to this planet, sorry, it gets all messed up and all the lights and all the cables are hanging down and everything's sparking, and it goes from being this really serene, tranquil zone to this really unsure and almost, intimidating room. And there's this super cool moment when the lady walks into this room and the camera pans with her as she progresses through it, and you're kind of like, this is pretty scary, this is kind of tense, because this room looks terrifying and anything could happen at any moment, because you're not quite sure where the film's going with its alien influence, because you've got, giant Vin Diesel guy running around. You've also got this monster that she's taken out of herself that's continued to grow, and Fassbender tells her it's coming for you, and you're like, what's going to happen? What's she going to do? And he turns up. He has a bit of a paddy, and she ends up going towards the door that has the operating table that took the squid thing out of her. And because this thing's maturing and growing at such a high rate, fucking Cell would be proud. It's turned into a giant squid. And the only reason I can think that it's turned into a giant squid is so that they can somehow link it to what the facehuggers look like, because the facehuggers have, the hand that grasps the face, and this has a tentacle equivalent that's less bony. So when this giant superior being starts to attack this lady, this giant squid, that for whatever reason has had an extremely difficult time getting out of this room up until this most penultimate moment, decides to pry open the door and grab the giant dude, saving the woman from, her untimely end. And he starts fighting with this giant squid, so it's, giant squid versus superior being, which I didn't expect, because this sounds like a Godzilla movie right now. It sounds like a fucking B movie, because you've got giant squid versus giant dude, and they're fighting, and the squid eventually gets the better of the guy, because it's apparently very strong and doesn't need water or anything like that. And it lays an egg, I assume, in his stomach, and it dies, just like the facehuggers do, because it's the granddaddy of the facehuggers. And they cut to this moment where his torso's been cut open. I'm not too sure how it gets cut open the way it does, but it does, and it looks fancy. And this thing comes out, and this thing kind of looks like a deformed dolphin, and it's got legs, and it's kind of like an anorexic leggy dolphin. And lo and behold, it's a very reminiscent shape of a xenomorph, and it does the iconic screech where its second set of jaws come out, although these don't really look like a second set of jaws. They look more like he didn't gum or gel in his false teeth very well, so they fell out when he yawned. But Prometheus, a long time coming, a long time waiting to watch, a disappointing viewing from me. Couple of tips I would say when you watch it: obviously do not analyse it as much as I did. I couldn't help it because I was so invested in the film before I watched it that I couldn't help but spot these holes, and you can find these holes in every single film that is made. It's just some of them hide them much better than others, should I say. Prometheus didn't, and it's a shame, because my favourite type of movie is when you take a bunch of people and you put them in a spaceship and the spaceship goes into deep space. The only type of movie I enjoy more than this is when something, and they don't know what, goes wrong, and they spend the rest of the movie figuring out what exactly it is. And I don't mind if it's aliens, I don't mind if it's self-aware robots, I don't mind if it's, fucking the atmosphere itself that's trying to kill people. I just enjoy the mystery, and I enjoy the atmosphere that these kind of claustrophobic space films create. And I do think it's a market that needs to be invested in again, because we haven't seen these kind of films for a long time. I just think Prometheus is not the film I expected it to be. I don't think it's the film it wanted to be, but I'm probably making it sound worse than it is, but that's just because there's an emotional investment, and it's very difficult to be objective when you're emotionally invested in something. Would I recommend you watch it? Definitely. Because regardless of how you feel about aliens, and regardless of how you feel about Ridley Scott, regardless of how you feel about Prometheus, it's definitely worth watching, because it's much better than a lot of the shit that Hollywood pumps out. It's just not quite what I wanted it to be. But thanks for watching, guys. The rest of these videos will probably be back on tangent if there's anything worth mentioning in the game. If not, I'm probably going to talk about more bullshit that I end up encountering in my day-to-day life. So if you like it, please feel free to show your appreciation by telling me what you'd like me to speak about, or keep on with the tangents. Or if you want me to to talk Darksiders, if there's anything you're curious about, just leave a comment. I generally reply, and if I don't reply, I generally respond in videos, so check them out. But thanks for watching, and you take care now.